What keeps you going? Where do you get your motivation? Whether you just want to be the best you can be or the best there ever was, we're here to keep you inspired. Conversations with today's top fitness influencers, coaches, athletes, and bodybuilding professionals. This is Inspired Fitness. Here's your host, Sean Feuderer.
Welcome to the Inspired Fitness Podcast. This episode is sponsored by Flexogenics. Every year, thousands of people undergo unnecessary joint and knee surgeries. Flexogenics was created to offer the very best in non-surgical solutions that allow you to get back to doing the activities you love. Before deciding on surgery, schedule a consultation and explore non-surgical options. I have personal experience with Flexogenics to treat osteoarthritis and tendon damage. I can confidently endorse their hyaluronic acid and PRP solutions. Welcome back to another episode of the Inspired Fitness Podcast. I'm joined today by my co-host, IFBB Pro, Kimberly Helm, along with our very special guest. He's 42-time Windsurfing World Champion and Red Bull athlete, Bjorn Dunkerbeck. You can find Bjorn on Instagram using @Bjorn Dunkerbeck. That's BJORNDUNKERBECK. Bjorn, thanks for joining us, man. How are things on the beautiful island of Bonaire?
Oh, pleasure. Bonaire has been really good. I've been here for 2 weeks with a family. I'm part of a windsurfing pro center here in the lagoon of Sorobon. I've been in there for 6 years. And it's actually one of the best water sports areas in the world. So it's been a great 2 weeks.
What makes it so great? What kind of surf do you get there?
It's very steady winds between 15 and 25 knots. And the water in lagoon is super nice and smooth, so good for slalom and free riding and also speed sailing. My kids just love it because it's 25, 26 degrees Celsius in the water. So they pretty much go all day long.
Yeah, that's perfect. Perfect temperature.
Have you ever been, Kim?
I have not been there before, but the description of the water and I love the wind too. And I have not gone windsurfing ever, but it's on my list of things to do. So I'm very excited about listening to today.
Well, here we go. Next summer, we have a date between you and Bjorn and the windsurfing school to try this out.
I would love it.
Yeah, maybe come in the winter when you guys have bad weathers, because in the winter also the water is 25 degrees Celsius and the air is 28 to 30. You know, it doesn't matter if it's January, February, March. So it's always shorts and t-shirt.
That's
beautiful
perfect.
weather for any water sport.
Nice. All right. I know what I'm doing for New Year's. I want to kind of give people a little bit of a background on windsurfing. There's several different types of windsurfing, and you've competed in multiple different areas, multiple disciplines. Can you give us just a little bit of background on the different styles?
In the professional circuit, there's the three main ones, which is wave sailing, which is man against man, jumping above the waves and riding the waves. They're scored from 0 to 10 points. Whoever has the most points after a 50-minute heat advances into the next round. Usually there's been 48 and 64 people competing in that discipline. And in the end, there's only 2 left, like in a tennis match or in a surfing competition. And that's the final. Then you have the slalom races, which are fast races with 8 men on speed. And there's a buoy set-up course. It's also a knockout system. There's usually 8 people in the first heats, and they half go through to the next round. So it's 8th final, quarterfinal, semi, and finals. And that's then the first wins always there. The last and the final is the 8th. And that's the slalom discipline. Then you had the racing discipline where all the competitors, doesn't matter if it's 50, 100, or 200. Then in the 90s, we had a combination between the 3, which was called the overall result. And that one I won 12 times in a row from 1988 to 1999. And over 30 world titles just in these years in all disciplines. I'm also the only one who has won all 3 disciplines, including the overall and speed sailing. And I managed actually in the mid-90s to win like 4 years in a row. So I was unbeaten for like 1,500 days in any discipline.
Wow.
That is incredible.
So you've actually been competitive windsurfer for decades, right? You started in 1986 at the age of 17, and you hold more titles, records, and trophies than anyone else in the sport.
And in any sport, basically.
I imagine so.
That is a rare and impressive feat to say in any sport, really. That is incredible.
Managed to stay at least on the podium in for over 26 years. I was always on the podium, minimum one discipline. And in the 90s, very often in all 3 and multiple disciplines. And I've been professional full on for 30 years. In the last couple of years, I only do speed sailing, which is about going as fast as you can on a windsurf board. And also called to do 50 knots on a windsurf board, which I managed like 5 years ago. And also called doing 100K top speed on a windsurf board, which I managed to do 2 years ago at the age of 52.
There's a video that you have posted of you setting a world record in the windsurfing for speed at over 40 knots, which in miles per hour is somewhere between 45 and 50 miles per hour.
It's actually a 55.98 knots, which is over 60 miles an hour.
Over 60 miles an hour. Unbelievable. So in this video, you're actually in a shallow channel, and you can actually see the ground and rocks protruding through the water, and you're going this fast. Now you've got some safety gear, right? You've got I imagine a vest and a helmet and some other things, but I want to know, what is it like to go that fast in such shallow water? What does it feel like when you fall?
You don't want to fall, first of all.
Falling is bad. Okay.
Very bad.
Rule number 1, try not to fall. Okay. We're ready. Go ahead.
And the Lüderitz Speed Challenge has been the fastest windsurfing spot for the last probably 10 years. Every year we go down there in November. The channel gets prepared especially to be able to windsurf this quick. And there's not rocks what you see to the right of the channel. It's actually sandbags to keep the line straight. So you're going pretty close up to these sandbags to have as smooth water as possible to be able to perform at these speeds. It's like taking a car on a nice and smooth tarred road where everybody can go really fast, or taking the same car on a dirt road where you cannot go fast at all. The trick is to get the angle with the perfect water quality, with the perfect wind strength to be able to do 100 km an hour. And so far, the only place that is suitable for that is the Speed Channel in Lüderitz, Namibia. And I'm going back there this November again. And on my Instagram, there's plenty of videos of that place as well.
Yes, there is. If you get the chance, Kim, go check out his Instagram reels. There's some amazing stuff on there.
I looked at some of it. It was incredible.
Thank you.
Bjorn, how have you managed to compete at such an elite level for 30 years? What's the secret?
My parents windsurfed in Denmark. My mother's from Denmark. My father's from the Netherlands. They fell in love with windsurfing. Then they moved to Gran Canaria, which is a part of the Canary Islands off the coast of Africa. It's part of Spain. It's really the European Hawaii, which really gave me in my early years a perfect training ground with my father having a winter center there. I had good variation of competitions, good variation of conditions, and a lot of other adults, competitors to compete against. So I was able to perform a lot between the age of 14 and age of 16 and 18 even. And that really helped me to set big, solid foundation for the rest of my career.
And you actually competed under Spain for a while, right?
For most of my career, yes, because I grew up there.
This is more than just a career for you. You're literally living your passion. Like, this is in your DNA.
By now it is for sure. Yes, it's my life.
How do you get Sean and I are both trying to wrap our heads around how you were able to accomplish so much success over such a long period of time. When you are learning at such a young age, I mean, obviously, you're going to learn through making some mistakes as you go, but you get stronger and stronger and you get more confident. Can you talk us through how you built up that confidence at such a young age?
The main reason, I think, was because there was not many young windsurfers at the time. So I competed against adults as I was very young, which I had to really force myself a lot more to be able to perform and be able to beat these big guys, And that had helped me all through my career. And obviously now I'm 6'4", but when I started, I was like 4'3". So I grew up with the sport, which also was a big advantage. I always was very competitive. I never wanted to be second in anything. I pretty much kept it up for 25 years plus.
You mentioned your parents were into the sport as well. And so I have to imagine you had not only them to look up to, but you were getting kind of competitive with them along the way as you got older.
Absolutely. My mother was actually in the amateur class in 1979 and 80s. She was second and third in the one design classes. And my father was a very fast windsurfer and actually became Spanish speed champion in various occasions in the 80s. I'm actually the second generation windsurfer in our family, and my son is the third generation. So it's really working out really cool.
Yeah. So Kim, we were talking before we started recording, and one of his sons is 17, you said? And he's
19 by now.
He's 19 now. But At 17, he was competing and was a Red Bull junior athlete.
Yeah, he's been sponsored by Red Bull International since he's 16. And before that, he was in a support team, but he's been competing ever since he's 12. But he's been world champion in windsurfing, wave sailing under 17 and under 20 last year, and top 15 in the overall open last year. And this year's only halfway through, actually, obviously. So still a few competitions to go.
So in the open, at the age of 19, he's competing with professionals of all ages.
Yes.
So we're talking about 3 generations. You know, Sean and I have, when we've interviewed other sports athletes and other competitors at high levels, you know, we've also talked about the difference between training really hard, having natural talents, having good genetics, having a natural ability for athleticism. 3 generations, that's not just a fluke, that has a lot of work that goes into it, that also has a lot of genetics and good athleticism. It sounds like that's within the family. Are these traits that you see, like, did you see when your son was younger, did you see where this would be a natural skill set for him, or how did that come about?
Absolutely. I mean, I grew up in my father's windsurf center, and my kids, they grew up in my windsurf center, basically. And they were surfing and bodyboarding from the age of 3, standing on a windsurfboard before they even could walk. The sooner you get into the materials, the more natural it comes to you. All my 4 kids are very competitive, and that obviously helps as well.
Tim, I was just looking through some of Bjorn's accomplishments, and these may not be completely accurate, but 150 World Cup first place finishes, 7 Wave World Championship crowns, 12 overall World Championship titles, dozens and dozens of PWA World Champion titles. I mean, and that's just scratching the surface, right? This is just repeat year over year, decade after decade dominance of this sport. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of competitors in this sport at a pro level. How do you just dominate for so long?
I just wanted to win, and I was prepared myself better than the others. And obviously, I was doing all disciplines, which made it more interesting, but also more difficult. And looking back at it now, obviously, it was tough, but it was definitely worth it.
Can you talk a little bit about some of maybe the discipline and the sacrifices you had to make to become so elite in your sport?
Well, if you want to win in all disciplines, you're going to put in 3 times as much training time as if you only want to win in one discipline. And in many of the big competitions in the 90s, it was 10 days long, it was over 2 weekends. And you had wave sailing on the wave sailing days when it was good waves, and you had slalom and racing in this 10-day period. And some of the competitors were only doing one discipline or 2 disciplines, and they were resting on the other days. But I was basically competing every single day, which made it tougher, but also more interesting.
Wow. We're going to get into how you train for that in just a minute. The other thing that, just as far as your background is concerned, you also hold 6 Guinness Book of World Record. What are those for?
For most titles in different disciplines, most titles altogether, most World Cup wins. It's actually 167 first places in World Cups and almost 300 podiums.
it's almost unbelievable, but obviously, I mean, this is something that the numbers are just overwhelming. So when you have that many wins behind you, let me kind of get into how you feel after having so much maturity, so many wins in the sport. Do you still feel that excitement when you win? Do you still feel like you're learning new things, or do you feel like you've already accomplished and been so many places that everything is just on the easier level at this point in time?
There's one thing, it's never getting boring to win, but I don't win that much anymore. I'm 54 now. I'm only going for speed sailing at high levels. I already have 1 hip replacement 5 years ago. The second hip is going to be replaced at the end of this year because there's already stretching bone against bone. And on tough days, I can hardly walk anymore. When I get it all fixed, they're going to be stronger again. So that's the price you pay after all these years.
Wow. But imagine this has been tough on your body. But I want to do a quick call out to just put Kevin Donahue on notice that Bjorn here has over 300 podiums, so you've got another 100 to deliver. So Kevin is he's a world-class obstacle course race champion. He's on track to hit 200 podiums by the end of this year. So we've just set a new target for him. What actually goes into training as a pro windsurfer? Just looking at how you ride a windsurf board in the different disciplines, you're constantly firing your muscles. Your core has to be incredibly strong. Can you just tell us a little bit about what goes into your training?
I mean, windsurfing is a good training in itself, But obviously, what's very important is body strength, core strength, leg strength. So biking is very important, and you got to put in your gym time as well, just to compensate and don't get injured. It's a combination. The stronger you are without getting too heavy, the better you're going to perform underwater.
What goes into your gym training?
I used to be a lot more in the gym than now, but it's definitely the most was leg training and core training. That was the main things in the gym. Biking just to keep your cardio up and everything, to be able to perform as good the first day as the last day of the competition. And that's where I really won a lot, because of the longer competitions with multiple days. A lot of people got fatigued, and I stayed strong mostly over my prime years anyway, in the 90s. And that gave me a big advantage.
Kim, he would have had to train a lot as an endurance athlete.
It was waking up in the morning and then pretty much training all morning, lunch, and training all afternoon, every single day when there's no competition.
So walk us through what a day looks like, as far as what time you get up and how long are you training and how do you fit food and nutrition into your plan?
Normally before sunrise, I'm up. I either go surfing, nowadays stand-up paddling. And before I was mostly mountain biking or surfing in the mornings. Then I had a breakfast with carbs and props and everything to be able to windsurf and perform. Then it's all testing and equipment as well, which usually did in the afternoon. Then you got to have a little chill time as well to recover for the next day. But basically, in my prime time was like from morning to evening was training and testing every single day.
And what about temperatures and weather? Are you always trying to train in different types of atmospheres, different environments for competition purposes?
Growing up in Canary Islands, we have pretty stable weather conditions, which is actually really good. So I was pretty lucky as well. And we had a fair amount of competitions in Japan, 10 years in Japan, actually, in Omaezaki, between Osaka and Tokyo. It was one of the biggest ones. And then we had 3 big ones in Europe, one in Germany, Sylt, which is actually coming up now in 2 weeks for the 35th time in a row. Then we had a big one in Netherlands, which also the weather is kind of shifty. And also in France, we had 2 competitions with cold weather. And that was also one of the guys who were pretty good coping with cold weather because of my Viking. The Hawaiians and Australians always had a bit more trouble with the cold weather, which always was a little bit of an advantage for me as well. So yes, training in shitty conditions, to put it one way, makes you stronger in good conditions.
That's what I was getting at. I think in order for you to be so dominant with your wins, I figured that there was a little bit of that. Clearly, I'm in the wrong sport because I'm a water person, and these places that you're talking about are phenomenal places to be on the water. So I'm a little envious of that. But it sounds like, obviously, it's a rigorous, we joke about it. We say, that the water is great and these places are beautiful, but you are on a rigorous schedule. You're out there training, you're working your tail off every single day. So it's not just fun in the sun and easy.
It wasn't. Now it's more relaxed.
Well, you've earned the right to relax at this point.
Thank you.
After 3 decades of competing, you've had to have had some disappointing and frustrating losses in there somewhere.
No, not really. I had, of course, losses, but you can't win all the time. But in the really, when I was the best, I actually won over 12 years, 80% of every single competition I entered.
How did you deal with the other 20%, the ones that didn't quite go your way? Did that ever get you down?
No, but you can always have a mistake, and no one can win everything. And just analyze it and why you did. And usually it was a stupid mistake or breakage of equipment or something like that, which can happen. It's just healthy to lose sometimes too, to appreciate winning again.
Well, that's a great point.
A lot of times when people are competing on a frequent basis and there's a lot of wins that are involved, it's easy to get complacent. It's easy to get comfortable, to get maybe too confident, or maybe, have a little bit of an ego when you have a lot of wins. So how did you keep that in control to make sure that you were staying focused?
Yeah, I think I was a natural talent that way as well. I was never the kind of guy who took it for granted that I was winning, but I took it as a smart way. So if I can win and prepare myself better, then I can win again. I kept that up as long as I could.
Successfully, it sounds like. Maybe that's your next adventure, is that you can write a book on how to be successful from a mindset perspective, because it sounds like you have a very strong mindset to have been able to balance all of that. Yes,
I do. Actually, I have 2 books out already in Europe, and I'm bringing a cinema movie out in 3 weeks. 120-minute documentary, which is going to be shown first in Germany and Austria. The first one is going to be shown on Sylt just 2 days before the Windsurfing World Cup on the 21st of September. Probably end of the year, it's going to be translated to English, and then hopefully it's going to go global.
we can certainly help push the message on that one. I'm excited to see it. After I've started really looking through your background and watching some videos, it's an amazing sport. I'm certainly going to try it at some point in the near future.
We'll make sure we get that on video.
We're going to need to get that on video. There'll be a lot of fails.
Maybe we could coordinate next time I come here in the winter, like in March, maybe. We could organize like a long weekend here in Bonaire, and I can do the one-on-one teaching express route.
I like it.
Sign me up. I'd love to come there. Maybe even do a little broadcast.
Cool.
I'm curious, kind of going back to handling the frustrations and the disappointments, whether that's, poor performance or broken equipment or, crappy weather conditions or whatever the case is. These things are tough on you as a competitor, both physically and mentally, and it requires you to do a bit of recovery. How did you tend to handle recovery for your mind and your body between your competitions?
Well, in the later years, there was a bit of recovery, but in the early years, there was not much time. And that's what I'm paying. My body is paying the price now. And it's like in any sport, the level is high. You got to keep training even off season. You got to take it a little bit easier to recover, but it's not much laying around in the sunshine, let me tell you.
Well, so this is a good opportunity for maybe you to pass on a little bit of advice for younger competitors, like so that for the guys and gals who are competing at elite levels, who maybe aren't paying attention so much to their body.
I am doing that already, and for a fact, I'm also organizing the Windsurfing World Cup on the island of Gran Canaria for the last 2 years in multiple disciplines with juniors and masters as well. My mother used to organize that one in the 90s for 15 years in a row. And then keeping up that family history as well to make sure that the kids from the Canary Islands have a World Cup in their own backyard.
So is there a specific physique style or type that works well with this sport? Are there certain, does it matter if you're a certain height? Do you need to have a certain body build? You mentioned that legs need to be strong. Is there, from a genetics perspective, are there certain things that work better for this sport?
In the wave sailing part, it's good not to be too strong and too heavy. So anything between 75 and 90 kilos is good.
Okay.
In slalom and speed sailing, you need to be at least 85 kilos heavy and 6 foot, otherwise you have no chance at all.
Oh, wow.
And in speed and to go 100 k's an hour, if you're not 100 k's, you have no chance at all.
Okay, so I fit the physique here, Kim. I'm 87 kilos and 6'1".
There you go. There you go. Now you found your next adventure. Here we go.
This is it. I've also seen, Bjorn, that you, I don't know if this was in conjunction with some of your sponsors or if this is just something that you did out of best practice, but you have a number of videos out where you have wearable technology on, whether that's, a monitor or a camera or some other piece of technology that's helping you improve your performance. What kind of things have you employed to help you become a better athlete?
Well, we use GPS devices that's going to monitor your angles on the tack on the wind and also your speeds. I'm actually working with a new app from Dubai. It's called Water Speed app that you can download. I have a couple of download ways, and it works for any kind of sport, but it's really a good one for any kind of water sport. And that helps you to be able to see what kind of equipment works better in what kind of conditions. So it's not only your feeling, but also you can see it on a laptop afterwards or on your iPhone and actually learn quicker. And that is a new technology that didn't exist in the 90s, but it's very helpful. And it's a lot of fun as well. Other than that, protection equipment. I work with a Swiss company. A company is called Forward Whip, helmets, impact vests. So if you fall, that you don't get injured. Very important. If you're injured, you cannot practice. If you're injured, you cannot compete. If you're injured, you don't improve. So have good protection is obviously a key as well.
So is the cost for competing at a high level, is it more demanding than a lot of other sports due to the technology piece of it?
Well, it depends. If you compare it to any car race, then it's a lot more expensive. Any golfing is more expensive. Obviously, you share a soccer ball between 22 persons and just nick around. That's maybe cheaper. So it really depends what you compare it with.
That's fair point. Fair point. For those folks who are younger, who are trying to get into the sport, can you get into the sport if you don't have a lot of financial incentives on your side? If you don't have a lot of sponsors yet, you're just getting started, you can still make your way through the sport for quite a bit without having the technology advantages?
Well, first of all, you need to find out where your next windsurf club is in your area. And if you start at a young age, there's usually some support for young talents,
Okay.
You're not going to buy equipment, become world champion. you have to start walking before you can run. So
Sure.
get involved in the local windsurfing community, and then the people there will see if you have talent, and that probably will help you out to get a good way, because everybody likes to help someone else talented to be able to motivate others in the area and promote the local area as well. So that'll be my advice. Start in juniors and get involved in the local communities.
I could pass for a junior, don't you think?
I don't think so. I'm sorry. I think maybe you're just maybe over that, just a little bit. But you have the best person that you could possibly talk to learn right here.
That is true. That is true. In fact, Bjorn, I've seen also that you have some partnerships in place where you're actually helping improve the technology of windsurfing overall, whether that's from the form and function of the board to the different types of sails. What do you have going on there?
I've also made the equipment on high level for my sponsors. At the moment, I'm working for the last 12 years with Starboards and Severne Sails. They're both based out of Thailand and Australia. And I'm doing the speed sails and the speed boards, also the free ride stuff, so it's easy and fun to ride. I've been doing that for the past 30 years. And then I have two main windsurf centers. One is the Dunkerbeck Pro Center here in the Sorobon Bay on Bonaire. And the second one is obviously the Dunkerbeck Windsurfing Center that's been established in 1978 on Gran Canaria. And there we do a lot with kids in both centers, and we create new champions. And we motivate the oldest to keep windsurfing, improving their favorite sport.
He got his hands into just about everything in this sport.
Absolutely everything. You're right. And an unofficial ambassador for windsurfing.
It sounds very official, actually. And I'm curious, you mentioned a lot about how you had a very rigorous schedule, especially when you were first starting out and when you were getting adjusted to it. You were constantly on the go because you were in so many sports at one time. Like, to your point, you never had a lot of downtime. You were always on go, whether it was training and competing in multiple categories. So now when your son is competing, do you give him advice to take it a little bit slower, or are you still like full throttle with your son as far as how it may impact his body at a later date?
But you have to be smart about it. You need to have a bit of recovery time. And he's focusing, he's very good in all disciplines, but he's concentrating on wave sailing first of all. So I'm on that side, I'm father at home, I'm coach when at a competition, and I'm also helping him, guiding him through his training as well, because I know what it takes to become a world champion, and he knows that. Sure. And he's already in junior been a multiple world champion, and also he's been Gran Canaria champion surfing, Spanish champion in surfing, and he's a very good wing foiler and pump foiler and all kinds of water sports. They even call him, he's the Kai Lenny of Europe.
Love it. That's awesome. So when you see him out there and competing, do you get nervous for him?
Excited.
Yes. Great answer.
I don't get nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've taught him everything he needs to know to be smart, to be safe, to excel at what he does. It is about being excited for him at that point.
Yeah, you got to help him to understand it quicker than others. He's very talented. Obviously, at young age, you do mistakes, but he knows that and he learns from mistakes. You got to do mistakes to be able to improve as well. And no one is waiting for him to go out there and beat him, so he's got to do a lot of work to be able to perform better than others. And that's a saying as well. If you want to be the best, you got to work overtime. That
is true. That is true. Do you think he carries a little bit extra pressure because he's your son?
He's over that, because he's been asked that same question so many times already in the last 10 years. And he says, no, I'm not even worried about it. I'm happy my father has been so successful and I can learn a lot from him. I do other sports like pump foiling and wing foiling that he doesn't even can do. So I'm doing my own footsteps as well.
Yeah, I can imagine that is a question he's been asked a lot. But you've set a bar that's so extremely high, it's going to be very, very difficult for anyone to ever beat that.
No one is ever going to beat that.
What's your philosophy for life, Ben? Like, you've lived this sport, you've competed, you've done almost everything there is to do with this sport. You're now training other people. You've got the windsurfing centers. You're sponsoring the World Cups and making this happen. Like,
I'm organizing the World Cup of Gran Canaria. The one championships on the island of Gran Canaria, I'm organizing with my team.
Is there anything else that you want to do with this sport?
Well, I've been doing this for many years already, like talking to you guys, making you guys understand how beautiful and nice windsurfing is for any kind of person. mean, alone the ocean is like a place where it cures your body, you know, and being out on the ocean cures your mind. So it's not only a physical sport, it's also a mental sport and something that balances any person that actually gets out on the water. And I'm trying to make it more accessible for more persons in the world, and also in knowledge where the good centers are in the world so you can learn it easily. And this is one of the projects that we are pushing for a while already, but we're pushing more in the next couple of years to make it more accessible for more numbers of persons.
Now, see, that's a great mission. You've done so much with the sport as a competitor, and now you're doing so much more for the sport for others as just an influencer. I think it's fantastic. What do you think, Kim?
It's such a pleasure to listen to not only what your accomplishments are. You know, Sean and I were both talking about how impressive your track record is. You've been doing this for so long. Obviously, it's been a lifelong venture. You sound like you're still very excited about it. And that's speaking to the passion part of it. That's where I get so excited about as a cheerleader, so to speak. I've never participated in this sport, but hearing you talk about it, hearing your excitement about it, and that you still want to be involved in it makes me want to learn more about it.
Just this morning, I taught two first-timers that are friends of ours here to windsurf, and they were windsurfing back and forward in the first 15 minutes.
See, I'm only 5'2", so I'm not. I may not make some of the height requirements, but I would love to give it a go. That would be a lot of fun.
What do you think, Bjorn? Do we have a junior's size setup for Kim?
I need the little kids version.
Yes, we do.
So you also have some challenges out there for the windsurfing community, things that you put on.
Yes, we are doing the Dunkerbeck Speed Challenge. We have 3 periods every year. They are 2 months long for anybody anywhere in the world. It's always in April and May. The second one, the summer edition, just finished now with over 1,000 competitors on the global ranking.
Wow.
It's called July and August, and the third edition is October, November. And last year we had close to 3,000 people on the ranking list. You can sign up if you want, both in windsurfing, in windsurf foil and wing foil. And it's on gps-speedsurfing.com, Dunkerbeck Speed Challenge. And every year we have more and more participants. The youngest one are under 10, and the oldest ones are over 70. So it's a concept to motivate anyone to use a GPS device and get out there on the water and measure their speeds and their abilities with anyone else on the globe. We have over 40 nations joining at the moment.
Wow, that is so impressive.
I'm so impressed with the stuff, Bjorn, that you're doing here that I just got to take a second and appreciate.
Breathe.
Yeah, and appreciate what you're doing for the world of windsurfing. I think it's amazing.
Well, and I think, one of the reasons why it's so interesting to have this conversation with you is that you're very relaxed about it. You're taking it all within stride, and, you've accomplished so much, and yet you're not boastful about it. You have good recognition of it. You're giving back to everybody with your skill set and what you've learned. And I think that's what's so impressive about it, is that as much as you've competed is as much or more as you're giving back. And I love that part.
Thank you.
Yeah. So do you travel? Are you almost always on the road now, since you're doing so you're spread so thin with all these different things? Do you travel most of the time?
I travel as little as possible, but I do actually do a bit of traveling again now. Especially with the moving coming up, I'm going to do 2 weeks premieres in all of Germany and Austria from the end of September to the middle of October. And then the 29th of October, I fly to Namibia for 3 weeks. So we're doing the Lüderitz Speed Challenge and see if I can actually go over 100 Ks again. That's the goal. I've done 5 times 2 years ago, and the goal is to manage to do 100 Ks again. And after that, I'll be back in Europe, and then probably back here on Born Air in March.
And I'll be there too.
One day before me.
Yeah, exactly. Bjorn, you touched on something a little while ago about the spirit of the ocean, the healing power of the ocean. And this is something I know Kim is passionate about. She refers to herself as a water person. I prefer to be on the water myself, although I don't have easy access to the oceans. We do have a lake. So being on the water is cathartic in a lot of ways. What's it been like for you, and what do you try to instill in students at the windsurf school about embracing the water, using it for its healing properties, getting your mind right, and being in the moment?
Well, first of all, I teach all the kids to take the trash that our people had dropped and take it out of the water and drop it in the trash can. and always in the same goal: don't throw anything away, recycle as much as you can for you and for everybody else. And then I teach them about the sodium and the salt in the water that's healing your body, and it's just not only water; it's also a therapy for your body and for your soul as well. And when they grow up next to the ocean, they can all feel that, but they don't know why it is. And especially here, there's so much salt in the water that's so healthy for you. And the area is full of mangroves as well. And I'm convinced that the oxygen level here is so high because I feel so good when I'm over here. And I just feel more energetic. So these are all factors to be trying to find out and actually be able to prove. There are healthier areas on the earth than others. I mean, a big city, obviously the air is not going to be as good as here in Bonaire. I try to be a good areas most of the time. And these are also things that we teach the kids as much as possible.
See, I love that. And I love that one of the first things that you said was about respecting the environment. Sean knows a couple months ago, I was in Sri Lanka doing some conservation efforts and cleaning up some of their ocean. They have a huge challenge with the trash there. It is overwhelming. It was one of the reasons I went there was to better understand the challenges they have with their conservation efforts in the environment. And we did some surfing out there, and you literally are, when you're paddling on a board, you are picking up trash, with your hands as you go through the water. And it's a very big concern. And at the same time, there's a lot of people who are out there trying to do better with it and trying to improve what's already out there. But I like that you're bringing awareness to that, because not everybody sees that when they're not always in the ocean.
Yeah, lately there's been a lot more attention in the last 10 years about educating all the kids to take care of the planet. And obviously, everybody on this planet has to help, because if only half help, then you're going to not be able to get it clean. Everybody has to do it.
Yes. And all the, the water is connected. It's all of our planet, and so what happens on one side of the world tends to travel over. So I totally agree. It is everybody's responsibility.
Since I was a kid, the population of Earth has doubled.
Yeah, we live on a planet of limited resource, so we should care for the ones that we do have. Bjorn, you're working with kids. You're working with even adults who want to learn the sport. What advice do you have for people who are just starting to get into it?
The most important thing is to do at a good windsurf center, because then you have the right teacher, you have the right equipment, and you will learn it in the first half an hour, because the equipment is so advanced these days. The worst mistake you can do is learn it with a friend with the wrong equipment in the wrong conditions, because then you're never going to learn it.
Yeah, and once you learn it incorrectly, it's hard to fix it, right?
Yeah, but also then you probably say, I can't do it, because you're on the wrong equipment. Because you have too small board with a too big sail, which is good for an advanced sailor, is very bad for a beginner. A beginner needs a big board with a small sail to understand what's going on. And in the windsurf centers, they have different sizes of boards and sails to make it really easy for beginners. That's why I advance everybody to go to a windsurf center and learn it correctly.
Well, listen, Bjorn, I think you've done some just absolutely incredible things. I'm still kind of in awe of all the things that you've accomplished here. At this point, I just want to thank you for a really inspiring conversation.
I think the more that you can share with everybody what you've been able to do, and that it's doable, you've set the bar so high in this sport and across any of the sports, really. It's a level of determination, it's a level of commitment that most people give up on. Most people don't last that long throughout their life in a single sport. Most people are in it for some highlight reels and then they jump out. You've been able to keep your body healthy enough that you've been able to do it for this long, which is fabulous. I'm interested to hear about how your future endeavors go, all the different competitions that you're supporting, all the different networks that you're doing with the younger kids, and having some foundation for people from the age of 70 down to the age of 5. I think that speaking to what people can accomplish, you've really demonstrated that better than most people could ever. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
No, pleasure. And as said, I'm up here in March again, make it arrange it and do a podcast from here after you had your first 3 sessions with me.
I love that.
That sounds great. That sounds great. Thank you so much.
I also noticed that you're wearing your sponsor on your t-shirt, Red Bull. I've talked to some other Red Bull athletes, as I've mentioned, and I've come to believe that they are a really fantastic partner for their athletes. You've been partnered with them now for decades. What's your experience been like with them?
Well, I was friends with the owner that passed away last year in a sad situation. And I've seen the company grow from just being in Austria to being over 200 countries these days. I'm very happy to be part of the Red Bull family. And I'm also very happy to see that they're pretty much in every single sport at the top level by now. Max Verstappen just did 10 Formula One races in a row. So this is all like a really great Red Bull spirit winning pass in all disciplines. And this is one thing that we're trying to keep up between all the Red Bull athletes. There's over 800 Red Bull athletes globally right now.
Wow.
It's far from being the end, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I imagine you're probably one of the elite members who've been with them for so long, I would think.
I was one of the first international athletes. It was not even Red Bull. I think they just started in England and Germany when I joined. And it's been just 30 years right now.
You mentioned that there's a new documentary coming out very soon. It'll launch in Europe and then hopefully make its way over to the US. What's it going to be called? And tell me again where it's going to be.
It's on my social media. It's called Born to Windsurf.
I like that. That's very good. Very catchy.
The poster is on Instagram and Facebook as well, and LinkedIn. And the first one is going to be the 21st of September, as I said before, just 2 days before the Windsurfing World Cup on the island of Germany.
Fantastic. Bjorn, thank you very much for being here today. It's been a pleasure talking with you. It truly has. I'm super impressed with what you've accomplished and what you're doing for the world of windsurfing. Join us again next time for the Inspired Fitness Podcast. Until then, we wish you a healthy mind, a healthy body, and healthy habits. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to Inspired Fitness, leading you to a healthy mind, healthy body, and healthy habits. To stay inspired, visit us at inspiredfitness.net. That's INSPIRD.net. Until next time, stay inspired.